I thought you were doing it. Am I doing it?
I just thought I would do that because I thought it'd be funny. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here. Ride IQ bringing you Jon and myself. I got that right.
You did, good job.
Here at the Kentucky 5-star 3-day event, the Defender Kentucky 5-star 3-day event. And we're here at the head of the lake, which is, as I said, just before the 8-minute marker, which is up on the hill there.
Yes, well done.
And I kind of felt like we were standing here talking about it earlier, and to me this is like I needed to do Sesame Street to figure out what the course was here, because it's like A, B, C, D, E. There's no F.
No, there is an F.
There is an F.
A, B, C, D,
E.
B, E, F. So let's talk this through.
D, E. No, E.
No. So we're super professional guys. The corner on the way out is E and F. And if you do the long option, you have to go jump
and then up the hill.
And then another corner at the top. So there's a lot of options here, guys. And I think you're going to see, in my opinion, a bunch of different choices being made. So the straight route, you want me to tell them the straight route?
Yeah, you go. I know what it is, but
so the straight route is you're going to jump the log, and then I think you can get 5 to the corner in the water. You think? Did you walk it?
Well, you keep going, because
Okay.
I think this is where we definitely are going to have a discussion.
I think you can get 5 to the corner in the water, but you have to be pretty committed to it. So it'll be interesting to see if the riders go 5 or 6. Then, honestly, I wouldn't even probably count to the bank out. You would jump up probably fairly close to the red flag, up the bank on the way out, which makes the line to that corner a little bit safer, I think. But it also makes the distance to the corner a little bit more open. So riders are gonna have to really know their horses if they're gonna go that straight route, and how quickly they'll pick it up versus how big their stride is.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's playing in there is always you're 8 minutes into the course, or just under. The horses at this point, they're not going to be that, it's not going to, like, if they're fatigued at this point, then you're already in a rough state. So I think that you can create your options there at D to maximize your efforts to the corner up there. But so what I was going to say is, like, there's no way I would count from B, C. I'd walk it to know whether it was going to be long or short.
From the log to the corner? Or from
no,
the corner
from
to
the corner to
yeah,
the bank.
correct.
I would walk it to know sort of where I am, but I would do the same thing, and I did watch Matt Brown walk that in the 5 going.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was quite right. But I never would be counting at this point personally, because I would jump in and feel what I had. And it's just I know you're a number person. You count, you're very good at that. I tend to be inclined to just kind of land with what I have. And I look more at the distance I'm riding than anything else. And so I wouldn't even be able to tell you what I got there after it, because I'd be just involved in what was going on, trying to get to that spot.
No, I hear you. And I think that's, to be fair, I like to know, okay, if I jump in, that's going to be a nice forward 5.
Yeah.
But I would say in the moment, I'd probably do the same thing and just react. I'm thinking, and I'm curious what your thoughts are here, that if you were to take a long option, this might be a very good spot for it, because you could jump that log, go direct to the corner, and then I think you could actually be much quicker up the bank if you stayed to the white flag.
Yep.
And then, yes, you have to jump the cabin and the corner, but you are jumping the corner heading the right direction.
Yep.
And I talked with Leslie a little bit about this as well, and I know he was thinking that might be an option that a lot of people would take.
I actually totally agree with you. I love that there's all the options, because the other option is obviously you can jump in, you can jump this little coupe here, you go up the hill here, turn back to the corner, and then across to the bank to the corner, or bank to those options. If you start doing that, you're going to be,
it's going to
be a long time out here. And also, that corner isn't exactly easy. Jumping into the crowd isn't a big deal, but you're going to have to refocus them. And I think if you're having worries about that corner there
in the water,
in the water, you're probably going to struggle a little bit coming off that sharp turn to that corner there. So to me, corners in water, when they first started putting them in there, because I'm not old, I remember when the first corners started arriving, and it was like, oh my God, corners in the water. But horses tend to not run out at them because they don't move their feet real quickly sideways. They sometimes get that off step where they can't, where they kind of do that and stall and drop out. So I think that the A, B, C to that corner is
probably most people are going to do that.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think this is a waste of lumber, honestly.
Yeah, and I think somebody's going to try to do this, and you're right, they probably end up with a very tired horse pretty quickly after this. But I do think that last bit, the EF, could be where people take the option.
I agree. I mean, look, I love this sort of feeling because to me, it's just very much in the moment. It also, by doing the direct line in the water to that corner, it takes their eyes off this is going to have people everywhere. So it takes the crowd out of the equation for the horses. And then actually focusing up to D, if you look to that, when you're coming to D, the crowd's off to the right. So the horses actually are going to be very focused on their pathway. Whereas I do think that's a bit the issue with going up. I like the bank over to the left to get to E if you're doing the table, but you're now jumping headfirst into the crowd again.
Yeah.
And that can be startling for some horses. So I prefer the direct line all the way through this, but it's always easy to prefer a line when you don't have to actually ride it.
The last thing I'd say about it here, and I remember this the first time I rode Kentucky, it was a long time ago. It does do you a lot of good to come out here in the morning when the crowds have started to show up to get a feel for what you're actually going to see, because it is very different your first time coming here, well, honestly, any time coming here, but definitely your first time coming here, riding in, and this is stacked with people. It's a completely different look for you as well. So you need to come out here, and I bet you'll see a lot of riders out here that are in the 5-star, while the 4-star's running, taking a look at this area specifically to see what the crowds are doing.
And with that, so the riders that come out, I remember Mike Winter when he rode here the first time, he had to stop on the bank. There was an island in the middle here. He had to stop on it. And he said, he'd come here thinking that he was like going to have this great weekend. The horse stopped on top of the bank. And then he looked up and saw all these people. He was like, and I realized everybody was watching me fail in real time. And it just struck me because as riders, like I was lucky. I got through that early in my career. I used to show jump at Spruce Meadows, and I failed in that ring so many times, and there was always tons of people watching me lose. So coming to this wasn't a big deal. Like, that part didn't bother me. But your horse, every time it comes out here, you don't know how they're going to be affected. Yeah. Some horses get really frantic and want to run. Some horses start backing off. Some horses move away from the sides. There's no experience like it until you're out here doing it, which is the great thing about doing the 4-star here first.
Totally.
Is it gets them going on it. So on that, the footing, they had a ton of rain here. It's been flooded a few weeks ago. And the footing is like absolutely lovely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And I said this on the coffee with Kyle this morning, that I think this footing here does a much better job when it's had tons of rain for a long time, because it saturates it low.
It gets all the way through and makes it almost like loamy.
Oh God, it's incredible. So the only thing you got to watch is, and they'll come out and pick them up, but we have little seeds from the sweet gum, I believe this is. So, but they'll have gone, oh, they haven't. But they're out there, and so the horses will step on some of those and stick them up in their frog. You gotta be careful with that.
You're like a botanist, is that it?
I like trees.
Yeah, awesome.
So by this point, the one thing that you've got going for you is, other than the crowds, is the horses are still gonna be fresh and wanting to run, and that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think it is, as always, they're gonna be the feature fence. It is going to be a lot of fun to watch this on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be incredibly influential, and I'll be interested to see how they pick up that corner on the way out. We're out here at fence 14. This is Pete's Hollow. It's about 5.5 minutes into the course, and I think it's going to be a really influential combination. So I'll go over the straight route first, and then Kyle, you can kind of give us your thoughts on all of that, obviously. So assuming you're going well and you're going to be taking the straight route, you come in and you jump this set of upright MIM rails, or vertical. You come down, you make a 90-degree turn, you go up what used to be the steps here, and you're gonna jump a triple bar on top of the hill. That is a pretty massive effort for the horses. And then you have to turn, kind of a slight turn, not quite 90 degrees down, what I think will probably go in 3 strides. Kyle will tell us that he doesn't walk that distance, but he would. To a matching triple bar down there. I think the big question is going to be, one, hoping to find a good stride to the B element on top of the first mound, and then when you get there, having a horse that has the scope and the step to be able to get that done.
So I would say, to John's point, first of all, the MIMS clips, you should know, are the things on the side there, so they're frangible, so when a horse hits them hard enough, they pop down, so prevents a fall, hopefully. All of these jumps have something of that on them, which is great, but it almost adds a little bit of, I question whether that's not going to be the biggest problem on the triple bar that's B, because I think it's going to require a lot of power, like Jon said. But if they go up and the ground's falling away on the backside and they go to put down early, which some horses will do to help themselves, and it will knock that down. And then you've got the bending back to the on the 3-stride to a longer triple bar at the next one. And the problem is the horses are going to come out flat. And so I think you're going to see frangibles happen a couple places here. But the thing that I think is, if you get here, you're early enough in the course, you're 5.5 minutes.
Yep.
The horses are going to be very fresh. Usually this combination happens much later in the course. And so usually you come up this hill and they actually you have to back off to give them a chance to take a really good breath to get them focused again. I don't think that's going to be so much at play this time. However, for me, what Jon's saying about getting the right distance to that, the right shot to that narrow up there, I always find on the mounds the horses get to the top and put their feet in a very similar place every time. And I think that particular exercise, they're going to end up there pretty well. And all you've got to do is prevent yourself from getting a little too eager across the bottom. Make sure you get them up there looking for it. I think that you're going to need power and scope, but I can't imagine very many of these horses don't have that. There are 2 in the field that I actually would be concerned riding the direct route on. The trick is, I think, when you land, is that they keep coming in front of you as they're going down the hill, where sometimes horses kind of get a bit flat and running, and you're not going to pick them back up on the way. That a couple of times I've had questions like this with angles where the horses got down there and they just didn't put themselves over their feet. So to me, I would land and get to the bottom here and sort of almost disconnect them and say, hey, come on now, and then ride that as a separate exercise that is one exercise. And I think it's going to, I mean, if they do that, it's gonna be that little bit of, I gotta take a slight break there to let that happen. And people don't like to do that. They always want to keep going and going, and you can make up time going down the hill after. So that's my feeling. I think the option at this point on the course, because it's early enough, I just, like, there's gonna be people that take it, but I think the option is it would be very low on my priority list of what I would attempt.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think, speaking of the options, so you do have an alternate set of rails on the far side. I honestly don't know why anybody would jump that on their first attempt anyway. It seems basically the same fence. You have a harder turn into it. And so I think that's unlikely that that's going to get jumped, at least as a first effort. Then you could go here. They give you an alternate to the B, which is not on the mound. So I think if you had a horse that you were worried about the scope, you might jump that. A little bit like over at the head of the lake, I think the question is, will people take the last element as the option? And I feel like that's a little bit your get out of jail free card. So if you gallop up the hill to that first triple bar and maybe you have the mim and it throws your striding off, or you know from the bottom of the hill, like, okay, this distance isn't going to work, I'm in trouble. I think if you have a quick thinking rider, you could grab the left rein, loop around, jump that triple bar, and get away without a penalty. So my feeling is that's how I would utilize it is, yeah, I'm planning to go straight here, but know in the back of your mind, if you don't get the jump you need at B, you could hang a left and save the day at the other option. And then you're right, it's early, so now you're behind the clock, and you really, if you're going to be competitive at all, or just be fair to your horse and not put all those extra efforts and miles on them, you do have to beware of how many other long options you really want to take.
I agree, and there's just, so I think that the thing there is they've been very good to you is that you don't have to be perfect and to get it done. You can be, oh, that wasn't good, I can make that happen, and then you can just sort of hate yourself a little bit as you're coming away from here, where you're calculating how much more time you just added to them. Plus, you're turning on the side of a hill and then you're coming up another hill, and those are the elements that at the end of the course kind of come back and bite you. So you might do it now and then you have to slow down later to make that up.
Right.
Just one other thing, I've noticed out here the grass and the footing is great. We're early in the course, which was unusual for this combination, but it seems like the grass is working for you because you've gotten much taller since the last time we were at the head of the lake.
Yeah, well, there might have been some strategy.
You're actually much bigger than I am now. Good for you.
This is what it feels like all the time for me when we hang out.
Oh my God, that must be awful. And I found the defender that I would kill you for is that gold one there. I like it much better than the white one.
Honestly, it's really nice not looking up your nose for a change.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Let's do it.
So we're here for Ride IQ up at the top of the course here at the 5-star, and we're at fence 20. And look, it got real much earlier than this, but to me, this is where things really get real. Because you gallop up the hill over there, and last year I seem to think that we had more time on top on the approach to that bank, and every time they have a short approach, the horses don't tend to get here and have as much gas in their or as much oxygen in their legs, and so they get a little bit rubbery. And so to me, it's always important to get to the top of the hill and chill out for like 6 to 8 strides, give them a chance to kind of get underneath themselves and be ready to perform, because what you've got here is you've got a really big effort of the bank up with the ditch in front of it to quite a tall house up on top where the person in pink is, who's not supposed to be out there because you're not supposed to walk on the course. And then what you can't see is the angled brush. Well, you can see it from this side, but that angled brush is like, I mean, you're seriously on the straight line in 3 on an angle like this at it. The other option is to jump A here. It's a cabin, so you come up, swing around the bank, over the cabin, to the big cabin on the other side, to the brush on the far side. So it's only A, B, C, but this is like a real question of degrees. Jon and I both talked about it, and we kind of feel like the best option, if you have the horse underneath you need, is, to me, and Jon agreed, because, I mean, why wouldn't you agree with me?
I always agree.
Yeah.
Super agreeable.
Would jump the bank and go, I would jump it just on a very slight angle going that way, giving yourself a little more time. Yeah, a little left-right angle.
Yeah.
Giving yourself a little more time to get to that last brush fence. So you probably end up with picking up 1 or 2 more strides on the way to it, but then they're on an angle, but it's so much in front of them. On the direct line, I just think they're gonna come over that, and they might pick it up, but they pick it up with a, should I or shouldn't I? Anybody who does the direct route is a champion on the 5-star horse that clearly just wants to jump. I've ridden horses like that, and it's wonderful. But I'd say in all the horses I've ridden, that most of them I would want to have a much straighter face to, because I wouldn't want to risk it, because I don't believe that much that they're just going to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think for where it's at, I agree. This is probably the most influential question on the course. And I remember a little bit of a callback. Jimmy Wofford always had a little story about how every dandelion on the horse park was a competitor's broken dreams.
Yeah.
And I think this is where a lot of those dreams are going to get broken, is at that C element. You're going to have people just having a great clear round, getting a little greedy, thinking they're going to go straight there in the 3, and they just glance off.
And then they fall off. It happens here all the time.
Yeah, because you're so committed to it, right? So the other thing that you guys will see is there, as you jump up the bank and over the B element, the house on top, Derek's very clever, and he has put a little tiny garden right there. And it's actually right where you would like to be if you were going to make just a nice, safe bending 3, maybe 4, or whatever it ends up being at that point, right? So,
strung out too.
So the question, the only wild card here is going to be, again, how much rideability you have left in your horse, how rubbery the legs are, how on the age your horse is at this point, because you're at about 8 minutes and 45 seconds when you get to the Normandy Bank here. And when you jump up that and you put that slight angle on it, is your horse going to be sprawled out and difficult to make that turn? Or is it still going to have enough left that you can be responsive? And so I think 100% of the horses in the 5-star could jump this combination. The question is, can they jump it at 8 minutes and 45 seconds and still have the rideability to get that done? That to me is the big question, right?
For sure. I think even early in the course, that angle is really, really strong, and it's going to take a horse that can jump and move itself over the side. But are they going to be able to move when they're tired or more tired? And here's the thing is, once you're in this infield, usually when you're watching and you see the horses gallop down the hill, you can start to see them stretching out. and you can see they just don't have the same shape. And then you jump at the bottom and you head up out of the infield on the other side. And at that point, if you're watching or riding, is usually where you know I'm bringing the horse home, or I got a shot at making it home with making the time. But the problem is, if you're doing any athletic endeavor and you fatigue yourself and you think that you're going to feel the same at that moment when you're tired as when you started, if you do any athletic endeavor at all, that just isn't the case. So when the horse gets there, some riders are going to be like, it's fine, they can do this, but you have to read your partner. You really have to commit to what you've got underneath you. I wouldn't want to do the long option though, with the circle, because I hate doing that to them at this point.
The thing I was actually thinking about, which you would have a lot of insight on for sure, is it's like running.
Yeah.
Like when you get running, and you run way more than I do, but when you get running, at some point your legs are almost automatically moving. You're not even conscious of it.
Yeah.
And then to think about if you were running a marathon, which is what this is for the horses, and you get to the end of the marathon and now you're asked to be quick-footed and reactive, how quickly can you get that done? And that is the question.
Yeah, and I think this is the fair thing with what we do as a sport. I think everybody who does this sport should be forced to run a long distance event, a seriously long distance event, to figure out what that feels like so they can understand what's going on metabolically in the animal underneath them, even if they're athletes, so that you realize, like my first marathon, when I finished, I could hardly step up a curb. I finished, the time was fine, but I remember getting that curve and being like, oh my God, it was like I was laughing my ass off.
So would you be a proponent of anybody who has a run out here has to run a marathon on Monday?
Yes, I think they should have to do it.
I'll see what I can do. I know people.
My wife and I ran Boston maybe the second to last time.
You're going to brag about running Boston.
No, but we came here 2 or 3 weeks later and I ran the 5-star here. And I remember being like very conscious of what the horse was going through underneath me. And I was on an athlete, and I don't think I'm an athlete.
Are you one of those annoying marathon people who has the tattoo on you of how far you ran?
I do,
Of course you do. It makes sense.
No, on this side is Canadian, and on this side it's the marathon.
I would, but I haven't really done anything cool.
Well, this way they can identify my body. That's more what I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, I think this is going to be a really influential fence for sure. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
And then it is interesting watching them gallop home from here and how much they have left, because there's still a fair bit to do.
I've always really enjoyed riding this. But at the same time, I never look at it and go, I can't wait to jump that. I'm always like, oh God, what's going to happen here? And it's been a few years, and it was never quite like this. That angle out is so extreme.
Yeah.
So anytime that's the other thing, is horses pick up their feet, and sometimes they're better going on a straight line when they're a little tired, because you're not moving them sideways like you were saying.
Good point.
And when you start adding the little curve in and thinking you're being clever, and they move like this, if the horse isn't underneath itself, they can't lift. Like doing a push-up with your hands off to the side, which you would know about doing push-ups.
I can do that.
I don't do those.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm wicked strong.
But thanks for joining us. I hope you guys enjoyed this, enjoyed me anyways.
Tolerated
him
me.
along for the ride.
You're such a supportive friend. Thanks, guys.